No,
It's okay.
It's fine. Yeah. Either way.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Everybody's got a story to tell. We're in Peru. We're on the end of Mason Street, almost as it intersects with Route 22B. And we're finally sitting down at a table and talking for a few minutes with my good friend Melvin Bob Bruno. How are you?
I'm great, Lordy, I'm great. And you're doing well too, I can tell.
I'm doing well. We got things to talk about. We've wanted to do this program for a long, long time. We're doing it actually late in January 2004. Snow on the roads outside, but Calvin and I both made it out here today. And we've done programs on stock car racing before, but we haven't completed the picture. And last time we did a stock car show, it was an awful lot of fun with some friends of yours up at a little place up in Chazy. Woodmen of the World have a little place on the back road, and that's where we met. And brought some of the guys down from Canada and had Charlie Trombley, 5 7/8, and we had a lot of fun. And as in real time, last night we went to a recognition, a volunteer dinner at St. Alexander's Church in Morrisonville. Bob and his wife sat right across from me and I nailed him. I said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" He said, "Let me see, my schedule's kind of busy and I got to be at the nursing home." So I said, "Okay, we'll be at your house and we'll have some fun." So I'm glad we finally did it. Stock car racing isn't the only thing this guy has done in his lifetime, and I think I can prove that. Take a look at this photograph. Wait a minute, you wrote on the back of it. I got a script here. Village School in Schuyler Falls, New York, at bat. Melvin Robert Bruno, school year 1941-42. I was only 5 years old, 6 years old, and you were 10. Grade 5. Jim Hutchinson was the teacher.
That's right.
And you got Charlie Supernaw is in the field.
Yes.
Now, I want to hear the background of this picture. Where was that? Where was it now?
This is the old school, at the old two-room school that's located on the Macomb Park Road.
Oh, yes.
It's just west of Rock's Grocery Store.
My
it's now an
goodness.
apartment house.
Oh, my goodness.
And my grandfather, that property, the additional property that went with the building, came from my grandfather's property, who owned a farm there. My mother's father, years and years ago.
If this doesn't look like it came right out of the movies, those old time movies of our gang and those guys with a shirt tail hanging out, man.
What is surprising, Gordy, most people don't realize that I also signed a professional baseball contract with the Philadelphia Phillies in 1950 and played down in Carbondale, Pennsylvania.
I had forgotten that. I did know that. And we were talking. I was talking the other day with Bob Garrow, my friend Bob Garrow, whom you know, and we were remembering Pete Blumette, who also played semi-pro ball, and we've interviewed Lefty Tessier. Did you know Lefty?
Oh yes.
He went to school in my era. He and I graduated, I think, the same year from high school, 1955.
We played golf together for quite a while.
Did you?
Yeah. On his day off.
So this is where the baseball started?
Oh yes.
You were probably playing a couple of years by then, though, weren't you?
I certainly had. And you played with all the older kids. So there was an inclination there that you had to be good in order to stay up with the others, and I think that was a big benefit to me.
You know, athletics have been a big part of your life, of my life, Calvin's life, with our families and our kids and our grandchildren and so on. And generally, when you and I sit down and talk, we always end up talking baseball, basketball, or car racing, or some other aspect of sports. But Calvin and I, some of the best programs we've done are with old-time ball players and referees, and you and I have been in tune with the sports scene around here for a long, long time.
I was just reminiscing this morning with Teresa And,
That's Bob's wife.
And I was talking about Calvin Castine, and I said, geez, one of the things that popped to my mind, he and Bob Venn worked together for a number of years. Bob Venn, I was probably, I don't know, 13 or 14 years old in high school, and we had a baseball game at Peru, and Bob Venn came in from third base, and I was standing holding the ball. It was a catcher, standing holding the ball, and he jumped up, and he about took my chest protector off and sent me all the way back to the backstop. And as I recall, there was, I believe she was an English teacher, Mrs. Hayworth. They used to, where the Hayworth Estates, they used to own that property, and she taught English, I think, up at Champlain. That might not have been her name, I'm not sure about that, but she was a Hayworth, and she was sitting in the bleachers, a very refined lady with a hat and a dress on and so forth, and she came out and lectured Bob Venn right there, pointing the finger at him, and she made him go over and apologize to me.
Did you really?
Yeah, she made him go over and apologize.
Later
And she
in
stood
life,
right
he might-
there, and he had no choice, I'm sure. It's probably very aggravating as far as he was concerned, but he came over and he told me,
That's
I'm
a
sorry.
story I hadn't heard before. We know a lot of stories about Bob Venn because he was a dear friend and one of Calvin's best friends in the whole world, and he, just to fill in the blanks here for those viewers who might be watching this program for the first time, we hope not, but Bob Venn did work with Calvin for a long time, had a very interesting life, and he was a wonderful human being. He loved animals and kids and everybody in the world, and always had a story about everything, and gave gum to the little kids. But this story about knocking you down at home plate, I think that's a good one.
I had forgotten about that, but we were just kind of reminiscing this morning. I said, geez, it popped in my mind.
And Bob Venn, I should mention, was actually my predecessor, who did something like 500 various programs with Calvin before I came along, and he had the bad sense to die in 1997 before I came along. Bob and I were reminiscing about Don Newell. We're going to hold that thought. Okay. We're going to stop the camera, make sure we got something going on this tape, and we're going to continue this wonderful interview with Melvin Bob Bruno. Now, I got to tell you, we always tell very good stories when the camera's not running, and we try to remember the stories we just told as we were taking a breather. I promised when we stopped the camera for a moment that we'd talk about Don Newell. You and I were talking about him. Don Newell, as many of our viewers and my friends know, lived right next door to me. And his wife has a beautiful new home. Don's not with us anymore. But he was a good ball player, a coach, and even in his later years when he could barely walk, he was still going to games up in West Plattsburgh, and he and I would talk over the fence. So some memories about Don Newell.
Don had a ball club that could almost be considered all professional. I don't think there was one person on the ball club that was not paid some amount of fee. Even though it might be small, everybody got paid a little token to play with him. He furnished all the transportation, the equipment, bats, balls, and so forth. And I can recall playing, and we used to play down on the, where Pine Brook Drive is. That used to be a ball field down there. And when they would have a crowd in there, and only passing the hat would end up with a couple of $250 worth of money from just passing a hat. And I can tell some very bad stories about Don and our baseball team, but I'll refrain from doing that.
We'll reserve those to private conversations.
But Don was a great supporter of baseball in the area, and was always very active and was always very interested in all of the players in the area, not only in the team that he had, but the other teams as well. He was very, very instrumental in promoting the game of baseball in North Country.
But you had some darn good teams with him. Name some of the good players that you played with Don Newell. Some of the people that we would be familiar with today.
Lester Rock,
Cheese Rock.
Cheese Rock. Lester is no longer with us. But Lester and Cheese was, at that time, was probably one of the premier pitchers in North Country. And you could almost go around the entire infield was Frank Perro,
Frankie Perro.
Bob Bouye, guys that were excellent ball players in the North Country, and had played for years.
It was a good. Those were good days. I mean, we've talked about living in small communities and neighborhoods, and you can't create those same memories today because it's a different age. Actually, most of us wouldn't want to go back in time because we had bad times as well as good times. But the good times were really good, weren't they?
Oh, they were tremendous. It was amazing what you thought were good times then, gee, are not even poor times now.
Well, when I talk to some of the old ball players, I used to talk with Leo Perry, who's now gone and lives in Florida. We talk quite often about the days of the old basketball teams getting in some old vehicle and going from here to Ellenburg or up in the northern tier and coming getting back in the middle of the night, and some of the ways you had to just like even when I played high school ball, we had a panel truck, an old Army surplus panel truck, and the whole cotton picking baseball team and the bats and the ball and the equipment sitting on top of each other and go 25 miles for a ball game and somewhere else in St. Regis Falls or Parishville or, well, those are great times.
We had an American Legion team, and I think it was probably up to 16 years of age at one time. And Tony Papero was coaching, who was the coach at Peru. We traveled in the back of a pickup truck. We all sat in the back of the pickup truck, except the pitcher.
You'd all go to jail if you did that now.
Yeah, you couldn't do that. But we sat there with all the equipment and so forth. And I can remember one time going up to Champlain. They had an American Legion team, and the Route 9 was under construction, and it was single lane. And we were trying to decide whether we should hang a bat out the side of the pickup truck and clip all the lanterns that were hanging on the barrels, but we didn't. We thought seriously of it, but we didn't.
Oh boy, good times. Not only baseball but basketball. Did you play football too?
No. At that time, Peru did not have football. They had soccer. I played soccer.
I had forgotten that.
I was very fortunate. I was a four-letter athlete in school. I also ran track. I ran a 100-yard dash in track. And we had a track team that never practiced because we were all baseball players. And the track meets were on Saturday, so we could go to the track meets. And we had the quarter miler we had was Bob Rock, who was outstanding.
Oh boy!
And Datus Clark, unbelievable, weighed about 200 pounds less than what he weighs now.
I'll tell him that. I'll probably see him later today. I saw him yesterday.
And he was the half mile. He was
he was a wonderful athlete.
Well, the two of them were probably the two best in the area, and we were competing at that time against the A schools. This is that time A schools were like Plattsburgh High School, and Lake Placid was a big school at that time, and we had 400 students in the whole school at Pruitt at that time.
Isn't that amazing? Nowadays, it's unheard of for kids, and even in high school, to play two sports at the same time. But back in those days, it wasn't all that uncommon to run track and be on a baseball team. And even in the 70s, I can remember one of my kids in Saranac who would pitch a couple innings, then go over and do the triple jump and come back and pitch a couple more innings. Unbelievable. Things that are unheard of.
No, we did that year after year. Really.
Well, we talk a lot about athletics on this program because it's a wonderful teacher. Organized sports, or even pickup ball that we played as little kids. What a way to learn social interaction with your friends, play a competitive game, and then as you grow up through the ranks and play the serious ball as you played for a while, it gives you teaches you a lot of the lessons for life, doesn't it?
Oh, very definitely.
Yeah. There are a lot. We can cover that a lot more. When you went to the service, you got out of the service, you still played some ball though, for a while, didn't you? When you got out of the service.
Well, my confession is that I played at Plattsburgh State University.
You can't do anything about it now, right?
No, they can't. The first year I was there, I played when I got out of the service. I played, and it was not questioned. I left for 5 years and worked for CIT Finance, and I decided to come back to school. And when I came back, I played again, and we had a great baseball team. And all of the attention happened to be forced was facing Jack Potter, who was a very outstanding athlete at Plattsburgh. He's in the Hall of Fame at Plattsburgh. Was an excellent basketball player as well as a baseball player. But he had decided that he was going to sign a contract with a pro team. Never did actually sign the contract, and came back to school. So that seemed to be the focal point, and it was often everybody else because of Jack. The second year, and I have to tell a story because the guy is still living, and I'll really mention his name, was Roger Wright from Peru, and Ernie Rangassis was a baseball coach that year, at Plattsburgh. And our first baseman had graduated, and I had played the outfield the year before, and he asked me if I could play first base. I'm sure I can. I had enough confidence I could play anywhere. So I was over on first base, and Roger Wright was an umpire. I did umpiring around it. So they were down watching the team work out one day, and Rangassis was talking to him, and he mentioned, and he said, "Hey, Bruno doesn't look too bad at first base." And Roger said, "Geez, he should be all right. He's played 4 or 5 years of pro ball." And Rangassis never said.
You gotta love it.
Rangassis never said a word. The next day, I had a note in my mailbox at school and to report to Dr. Rangassis, and I went down to see him, and he said, "Might I understand that you played professional baseball?" I said, "Geez, whoever told you that?" He says, "A friend of yours, Roger Wright. I'm sorry, Roger Wright." We had a discussion about it, and he said, "Geez," and we hadn't started. We hadn't played any games yet. He said, "We could have forfeited all the games last year and la-di-da-di-da." He said, "I think it'd be best if you just left." And I thanked him very much for all the help, and I left. That was the end of my baseball.
You tried.
Yeah, I tried.
You tried and cried. That was a lot of fun, but those are golden memories. Most of those things don't happen now because everybody, the media the way they are, somebody would have caught you and found you and, gone through that whole routine. So after that, you graduated from Plattsburgh State, right?
Right.
Then what?
I started teaching on the base. That was the year that the school opened on the base.
Yes.
And I stayed there until...
Northside?
I was at Northside. I taught 6th grade at Northside for, 20 years.
Long time.
Yeah. And I went over to Southside as a principal, and then eventually went down to Peru Intermediate as the principal. And I always laughed about it because I was in the original building at Peru, which was the only building when I went to school there. And that principal's office looked a lot larger when I was a student than it did when I was the principal.
Isn't it funny how that works?
Oh, yes. I thought it was huge when I was a student, but it wasn't really very big at all.
That's fine.
Want coffee? Everybody.
I don't want
We're talking about getting a cup of coffee. You know how I love coffee, Teresa. All right, so
none for me.
So you got out of school. Well, let's get started on the stock car stuff. When did you first? Were you a fan before you were a driver?
Actually not. I had gone to the races up at Moffett Park.
Oh yeah.
You don't remember where Moffett Park was.
I know about it. Yes.
But up at Moffett Park, this is before the
None for me, thanks.
going into the service, and I came out and we got married in 54. Teresa and I, and the next year, Teresa's father and I were great friends. We did well playing poker together and so forth, and
Thank you.
I almost think I was probably his favorite son-in-law.
Oh yeah. That's your story, and you're sticking with it,
I'm
huh?
sticking with it. We went up there. You had to know our father. He was a great gentleman. I went up there one Sunday, and this is when Airborne was running on Sunday afternoon, and women were all around here, and we always gathered up every Sunday up at the in-laws. And he was talking. He says, "Let's go to the races." I said, "Yeah, I'll tell Teresa." Yeah, he said, "Let's just go. We'll tell them when we get back." And we went to the races. We get down there, he and I, and I had at the time I had no idea who was even racing. But one of the people that was racing was Charlie McGee. Now this is Smiling Charlie McGee's father.
Oh, I know very well.
And his father, well, there were 3 Charlie McGees. Smiling Charlie's grandfather as well lived over here off in the Salmon River Road, and he was a great friend of my family. So after the races were over, I walked over and I was talking to Charlie, who I knew, and I was, I don't know, kidding him about he'd ran into somebody or smashed the car up and so forth, and about driving. And he drove tractor trailer for the Lakeshore Road.
Not McCaslin.
No, I can't think of the name right now.
Anyway.
It escapes me. But he drove tractor trailer, and I was kidding him. And he said, "Did you ever drive one of these?" I said, "No." She said, "You think yours is good? Do you want to drive one?" I said, "Jeez, I'd like to try it." Calm down, next Sunday. So during the week, I stopped up to, and he had the car up here on the farm. That's where they worked on it. I stopped up there. I didn't even have a helmet or anything. So don't worry about it. I got a helmet you can wear. He had one of those little peapot helmets that they used at that time. So I met him down there the next Sunday, and I started driving the car. That was it.
Did it feel? Can you remember that first time?
Oh yeah,
A little adrenaline
oh
rush.
yeah, I
Little
still can
adrenaline
remember.
Hey, wait a minute! I'm not supposed to go sideways like this.
I had a lot of experience with the car. My father had a car that I had had up on 2 wheels, and everybody, all the young guys would tell you I could drive a car. That was
We could all drive cars back in those days. We were just wild and crazy. A lot of dirt roads. Was the track? The track was dirt then.
we were so good that
Right?
Terry Trudeau, who was a professor out at the University of Buffalo, and this is with an old handbrake on a 36 Plymouth. We could turn the car. He would do the handbrake, and I could turn the car between Peru and where the auto sales is there at the end before you get to the river. On that piece of road, we could turn the car around completely and head back to Peru. And we did it. We used to do it. So we'd wait till cars are coming down the road towards us and whip around like that right in that Macadam Road. And that's all. That was all you're doing. It was using a handbrake.
But Airborne wasn't paved when you started, right?
No, it wasn't. But I drove Charlie's car for a couple of years, 55, 56, MB2. And the reason it was MB2, it was McGee and Bridges.
Oh yes.
And
I was a fan back then. I graduated from high school in '55, but I would come up here to watch the races. I'd go to Canton to watch the races. And what else was Fort Covington?
Fort Covington. That's the best track that I ever was on. Fort Covington.
Short track, right? Half mile.
Half mile, same as here.
Yeah.
Half mile, but it was the best track. Best.
People love to race there.
It was a great track. It just didn't draw spectators there after the first couple of years that it was open. It was great for a while, and then they had a problem getting the cars to go there. The purses were low, and
Yeah, that was part of it.
Yeah.
But you raced because it was fun. Never got in a fist fight in the infield.
no.
But we knew people who did.
Yeah, no. There it is.
Those are stories we may or may not tell before we're through here today. But that's how it started. He said, "How'd you like to drive a car?"
Yeah.
And you were
Yeah.
pretty good the first time you were on the track. You know, there's a lot of athleticism involved in stock car driving. People don't realize that, especially in some of the long races. You better be in pretty good shape.
Oh, I think probably it isn't only the conditioning, but the reflexes are so important,
So important.
and the sight, the depth perception you have, and so on. And
Peripheral
I was
vision.
able to pick out those things. I think that's what I never had a problem. And then I one of the winningest cars I ever drove after Charlie. The following year he wasn't going to. I drove for him like that year and the next year, and we never had any deal or handshake or anything else. Or just drive the car.
Just did it.
It was
Imagine
whatever
doing that
money,
today.
whatever money was made went back into the car, and then Nels Chappell, who had at one time it was 00. We had to renumber it. It became 000, and it was a Hudson, a 6-cylinder Hudson. And I don't know if I ever lost a
Young
race.
viewers have no idea what we're talking about. It doesn't matter.
But this car was, at that time, you were running flathead engines too.
Mm-hmm.
They were the overhead valves like we have now. Were not. But that 6-cylinder Hudson, I don't know if it ever lost. I don't think it ever lost a race. As a matter of fact, they kicked us out of Fort Covington.
Did they really?
Yeah. We went up there, and this was towards the end of the year. The guys are all complaining because the cars that were in there could not run with it. Now this was a hobby division at that time. There were two divisions, hobby and the sportsman, and that's where I started with the hobby. But at Fort Covington, they said, take the car home and don't bring it back because we're not going to let you run.
And it's just a decision they made. You didn't break any rules.
No, but I went out there and there were 18 cars that started, and I started 18th. And when I came around to the checker flag, I was first. And I just that was the last race you were going to run. I just laughed and let her go. He said, run as hard as you could. Lap everybody you can.
Isn't that
And
amazing?
they weren't going to let us back anyway, so it didn't make any difference.
Did you run the car after that up here?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, that car at Cernak Lake one time, I won both the hobby feature and the sportsman feature. And the reason I don't know if you ever were up to the Cernak Lake track.
Never.
It wasn't it was a terrible surface. It was a very loose surface, and that old Hudson, it just it wasn't going to spin the wheels an awful lot. And I laughed about it because Ernie Reed and those guys that were, a matter of fact, Vic Wolf, who I drove for later, had a car up there that were racing, and they were sending 2 streams of dirt up in the air, and I just could go down in the inside of them and drive by them. I putted around there. And old Bill Wimble was there that night.
Oh, come on.
Bill Wimble was there driving somebody's car. And
Let's talk about him for a minute, because once again, young viewers have no idea who you're talking about.
This is a former national champion, Bill
Just
Wimble.
so well known internationally over the years, but today people wouldn't have any idea. I don't even know if he's still alive. He can't be still alive.
He was a great driver. He drove here. He drove Rao's car, the T800 car, who had all the people that went to the races. It had all the holes in it. They had cut holes all over the body.
Oh, I remember.
And I
that.
think I talked to Gillard Rao years ago, before he died. There one time we were talking. He still had that body.
Did he really?
It was up in a barn somewhere either outside of Altona or
Gosh, I wonder if it
more-
still
more
is.
something.
Wouldn't that be cool to
it
find it?
was a old T800.
People tried anything back in those days. Different body styles, different engines, and it was interesting to see how the horsepower got more and greater and greater and greater. And stock car fans today don't know what the coupes looked like. Well, here we go. Here's 2 classic 66s. Talk about these 2 cars.
You have to look at them. See, this is a coupe. This we used only 1 year. All of the coupes, we've built a new one. The sedan we used a couple of years, and as a matter of fact, it was up in Canada, and I can't recall who was telling me that they ran across the person that was running it was still, or had it, and it was still in fairly good shape. We had the first sedan. Vic built the first sedan.
I know, Vic Wolf.
Well, that's how I got started when I was in the hobby class with the old 000. And geez, we ran well. I was the New York State champ with the thing, and
Oh, sure.
won Cernak Lake, won Plattsburgh, and all that business. But the following year, I was going to run run the 000 again, and a guy from Glens Falls came up, and he had a car, and they were looking for somebody to drive it, and they asked me if to check to see whether I could drive it or not, and the pit steward at that time said it was okay. He said, but I had to buy a license. So I bought I hit it in the spot. I bought a sportsman license, or gave him the money for a sportsman license, and filled out the papers, and I had both a hobby license and a sportsman license. So I ran the car. Oh, probably it was from the middle of the year on, probably half a dozen times up here at Plattsburgh, and I ran both classes. And I didn't win with that car. It was a sedan, but it was a late model sedan. It was a terrible built car, and geez, we talked about it. And a guy by the name of Swears had it, and the next year he was going to build another car. And Vic Wolf talked to me during the winter, during the fall there, and wanted to know if I'd drive for him. And Vic had a great car, but he had a Pontiac engine. And I said, and he was, they were pulling studs all the time, and it would really ran well, but he always had a problem with it. And I said, gee, if you build a Chevrolet engine, I can drive it. So I'll build a Chevrolet engine. I said, okay. He said, I do business by a shake of the hand. I said, well, we shook hands.
Isn't it amazing?
How much do you want to be paid? And we discussed that. He said, that's fine. And that was the end of it. I get out of the hobby business and I drove for Vic. And the first year that we started, we often talked about it, that we went out and they got the car finished, and we went out to try it on the track. And we actually wore a set of tires out before the races started to get the car to handle the way that we wanted it. And for 3 years there, we won about everything. This was in '60. That was the first year they paved the track. And Vic, at that time, was a track. I just bought the into the track. He had bought Lyman Burnell's share. There were 3 of them.
Yep.
Lyman Burnell, Burt Blake, and Broderick, Norris Broderick. And he bought Lyman Burnell's share, who was a small contractor, and wanted to get out and was looking for some financial help, and Vic bought it. And that's when we got into the real racing. And then the last year that we ran really competitively down here was, I think, '63, when we ended up. And by the way, the only driver that ever had a bonus put on him was Bob Bruno.
No kidding.
That's the only one. And I got the clipping here to show you.
Tell me about that. I had forgotten that.
They had a bonus. I think we won like the first 2-3 couple of races, and then they decided they were hunting for anybody that would beat me would get an extra $100. The problem was what they started doing. They also started paying. They said the crowds were fluctuating. I was ruining the crowds. This was the other thing.
Isn't that amazing? Everybody hates a winner.
They talked to me personally about this. And what they would do, they would pay a percentage. If you won, you get $300. If I won, I got $250. And this is ridiculous. The crowd looks the same size, and Vic is he was a part owner, and he's saying, you're penalizing my driver by doing this. Yeah. It isn't so much me, because I get to keep some of that money. But anyway, we went back and forth with that, and he talked to me. He said, we got to do this. So, and Burt Blake was the one that did the preaching to me. And well, anyway, we went on, and I think we won, I don't know, like 13 of the 17 features. and there was nobody that ever collected the $100. The only reason that we didn't win them all, twice we lost. At that time they were running straight rear ends. They didn't have the quick change. They didn't allow the quick change, and we lost a couple of rear ends. They get sharpened up and would break. And we lost a couple of those, and one of the times we lost a tire and ended up breaking a wheel. They were running recaps, and we lost a patch on the tire, and when it did, it tore the wheel apart. But no, one of the amazing things with Vic, we had a great deal of respect for each other, but there were some good people that worked in the car. Wesley Mitchell, who was probably the #1 agitator in our country. Jack Ruger, who was excellent, did an excellent job in the car, and Jack and I always had a very good rapport. Vic and I, sometimes we couldn't reach an understanding of quite what I wanted and what he thought I should have. But Jack could mediate it pretty well and could get me what I wanted. And he said I always worked well.
Always that undercurrent going on. But that wasn't just you. That was a lot of drivers and the people they drove for. You know, there were a lot of stuff happened behind the scenes that the general public wasn't aware of.
We never had any great problems, really, Gordy. You know, between the two of us. But when I would say, gee, you know, I'm having a problem. It's really plowing on me a little bit, and let's get that out before we.
Racing fans know what that means.
Well, it's pushing the front end.
Sure.
Really is what it is. And gee, he would want to do one thing, and I said, gee, let's try this other. No, we'll do this first. Jason Jack would say, oh, we'd get going, and the three of us stand there and talk. And Jack was really did a great deal, and Wesley was. It's unbelievable the amount of work and time that he put into the stock car.
These guys weren't in it for the money back in those days. They were in it just for the passion and the joy, right? Most of these guys.
Well, Vic had a very large trailer court there. Matter of fact, where the
trailer park,
where the South Mall is.
Yeah.
That he owned all that property,
sure.
almost, except the 3-4 houses in the front was the place there. But no, we did really well. And then he got very upset about the payoff, and he told him we weren't coming back the next year. We were going to race down at Fonda, and we did. And we raced at Fonda, and we raced at Cernak Lake, and it's amazing the places that we raced. Unbelievable.
You didn't go to Catamount that much.
Yes.
Did you?
Yes, we ran at Catamount.
I didn't realize you ran that much at Catamount.
Matter of fact, I won the
whole different ball game running over there, wasn't it?
Yeah, because
what kind of track?
It not only was it shorter, but it was so narrow. It was difficult to pass, and you had to have a really superior car. And some of the drivers that ran over there, it was almost impossible to pass them. It really was. We were talking one time. I ran a 100-lapper over there, and I kind of lost track of where the first place car was. And I'm watching the flagman, and I'm the first car he's giving signals to, like, you know, with 10 laps to go and so forth. So I really thought I was in first place, and I was trying to pass a car, and the first place car was actually just enough ahead of me that, you know, it would be just around a turn, and I should have been able to catch him easily because he was having a little problem with the engine. It was not running as well as it should have been, and I spent 10 laps trying to get by one of the guys that I knew, and I banged on him a couple of times, and I never did get by him. I followed him to the end of the race. And I came down around, and when they threw the checkered flag.
Ready for a victory lap?
When they threw the checkered flag, they didn't throw it to the car in front of me. They threw it to me. He did. And, geez, I come around and I stopped. There was a car already. It was Buck Stevens. It was already there.
Bugsy Stevens. Yeah. Holy mackerel. Some of the great names, and we can throw out a few of the other drivers. Who were your biggest rivals down through the years, do you think?
you know, locally, you got to start with Charlie and Dick Nephew.
Charlie Drumbly and Dick
Charlie,
Nephew.
yeah.
Great rivalries. Great, wonderful
I
match
never
races
found-
and
yeah.
rivalries.
I never found the Canadians really that competitive when we were running good. And they came along a couple of years. They were in Fonda and seemed to run good, but John Paul Cabana was not a real winner here. Andre Manning was not a real winner. Bashou didn't won. Hamel, you know, they may have won a race here and there, but Goddard, there, the hairdresser that used to wear the white suit.
Andre? Was it Andre?
No, it was Andre Manning.
Andre Manning.
Anyway,
Anyway,
he was a beautician. And,
yeah.
but
But they were fun days. And
Yeah.
Airborne was really a hopping place for many, many years. And then Thunder Road came along. I don't know what year that was. Did you run over there?
we won twice. That's the only race I ever won. The only race I ever won at Thunder Road, I won going backwards.
You know, I remember that. And I had forgotten about it until right now because I was there. I was there.
spun
That
out
was
and
the
I
talk
went-
of everybody
I
at the
s-
track.
I spun out and I went across the finish line
Unbelievable.
backwards.
That was a dangerous track.
Oh, that was a terrible. You know,
More metal got twisted on turn 1 over there and turn 2 for that wall. And
the first time we went over there, we went over with the sedan, and this is another
I'm
thing.
just going to show the picture of this while you're talking.
Another thing with that car, we ran a smaller engine, but we ran fuel injection and we ran fuel. We didn't run gasoline.
Oh, you did?
Yes, we run methanol,
Okay.
which was cooler, and I really ran great. We went over there, and they were still running some flatheads at that time, and
That was a transitional period, yeah.
and you touch this thing off, and the fuel injection is very different than a carburation. When you stop on a fuel injection, everything is going in immediately.
Oh, yes.
They're feeding every cylinder. So there's a great deal of difference in the pickup. You know, with
Oh, yeah.
carburation, you get when you're going into the turn, you get off the gas, and you could almost get onto the gas right away.
Yeah.
And it would come just
It's
about
all
right.
a timing thing, yeah.
Yeah. So you had to recondition yourself to drive the fuel injection, and we ran very well with the fuel injection, but I don't. We ran at Mallett's Bay.
Oh, yes, Balance Bay.
We won at Mallett's Bay. We were track champion there the last year that they ran there. Geez, I just happened to be reading through one of the clippings, and a quote from Vic Wolf in there. This one year, I don't know, we had run like 40 races, and we'd won 30 of them.
Isn't that
It
amazing?
really was. It was unbelievable. And of course, La Prairie had a track up there that we ran at. We didn't run. We ran very seldom at Riverside. And I have to tell a story because when I was talking about the Swears car that I drove out of Glens Falls, he came up the following year I came up and wanted to know if I would drive it. They just got it finished. He was going to go up to Canada. He called me. Is what he did, and they came through and picked me up, and we went to St. Jerome with the car. And it was great, but he had reversed the clutch and the brake. The brake was on the left-hand side, and the clutch was on the right-hand side. Well, you only use the clutch to start with. That's you're shifting only one time. If you can get that right, you don't even have to use the clutch. Get your speed right to shift. But anyway, seriously, it was fine at St.
can see
Jerome.
what's
We
coming
had
here.
no problem at all with it in St. Jerome. We went down to Riverside that night, and the first heat I was in, and they ran the modified cars, the real jobs. They were right in with the sportsman cars. That's what they were called at that time. Or it was all modified, really. But we were running together. One of those rail jobs, whose father owned the track, I can't recall his exact name, but spun out, and he was in the turn, and gee, he was in front of me. I came up to him, and I pushed on that clutch, and I ran right smack into him, and he jumped out, and he was absolutely livid. And going, "Oh, you never drew a brake, you never tried to stop." And then it finally dawned on me, and it didn't hurt. The only thing it did, the cow catcher thing it had in the front there, kind of messed that up. But the rest of the car was fine, except that the engine had moved a little bit, and it bent the linkage in the shifting lever. So all we did is they just pulled down, and were able to hammer it down. We started again, it was going fine. But I said, geez, that guy, I smacked right into him. I never pushed on the clutch, or never pushed on the brake at all, just pushed on the clutch.
You know, there are so many friendships that you make at tracks. And I remember the late Art Prairie. Remember Art Prairie?
Oh, yes.
Who worked at the track as a flagman, I guess, for a while. I don't know what else he did.
A long time.
Long time. And he was a ham radio operator and ran some phone patches for me all over the world. And just a good guy. And he'd been gone for and ever. I used to say that his radio station outside of his place where he lived was more powerful than the radio station I worked at. But he was there for a long time. And who was it that took the photographs at Airborne for all those years?
Oh, God.
His wife's name was Jerry, and I should know because I looked.
Archie.
But anyway, there were so many good friendships, and I because we broadcast the races, as you know, for a long time. And one time the wiry mobile unit was the subject of a T-bone crash in the infield, and I jumped out of the way, and boom, that was the end of the car. Another time Charlie ran into the wall. I've talked about this on turn 1, and I forgot it was on the air and dropped the microphone and ran out to see if he was all right. My boss almost sent me down the road without a paycheck that day. So many good memories. And the people, remember Red O'Connor, who was the track announcer for years and
His
years?
son's still here?
And he was our civil defense director back in those days when we were so worried about the Russians dropping the bomb. And Red was just wonderful, wasn't he? On the radio, doing the track announcing, and on the radio, he was so great. And some of the...
He would tell you, Bob, make it a little more exciting.
Yeah, beef it up a little bit. And Millie up there, I remember in the booth.
Millie Jubert.
Millie Jubert for a long time. I could always hear her laugh a mile away. When Millie was tickled about something, she would laugh. But they were good times. And there were... they tried to make changes in the track over the years. Some were for the better, and some weren't necessarily for the better. You always liked to run on dirt, though, didn't you?
Well, I kind of grew up on dirt, and to me it was always a great feeling, you know, to be able to sit there and you're turning the wheels one way and the car's going the other, and it's just unbelievable how you get coordinated with that. And
a lot of it is that coordination, as you said, and your athleticism has a lot to do with it, because you have to think ahead, and you don't have much time to react, especially on the shorter tracks.
We were I was very fortunate. I had had some asphalt driving before I came. We went out to Rochester for a period of time here. Before I came back to go to school. That's where we were, out in Rochester. And I hooked up with a guy out there who had an excellent car. And I knew him or he got to know me through Ernie Perrier. There was some relation between Ernie Perrier and Jim Hurleby's, who ran Indianapolis. I think that was like a nephew of Ernie Perrier's. And this guy, so I stopped when I was out there. I stopped to see him right after I get out there. And he had a stock car around there, and got to talking and where he from, and we made all these connections got going, and I hung around with him there. Went to the races with him 3 or 4 times, and the guy who was driving the car, one period of time decided he didn't want him. He was done. Oh, very upset with him. That was it. So he said, "You want to drive?" I said, "Geez, I've been waiting for this chance, you know." So I drove the car out there, and I ran at Monroe County, which is dirt, Monroe County Fairgrounds. But we ran at Spencer up in Williamson, which was a half-mile asphalt. So I had some experience, and they taught me a lot because they had been running on asphalt before, and what to expect, and where that we should set the car, and what they had been setting the car at previously, and how I should get in and out of the turns. It was a lot of things. So when I came back, it was still dirt. Airborne was, and gee, I don't know, within a couple of years, it turned to they paved it, and I always remarked that running pavement is like taking your father's car and seeing how fast you can go around a turn without going off, and everybody kind of sloughed it off. I always felt that way. I did.
Isn't that amazing? Did you
But
know?
but it worked much better.
Yeah. Interesting history, and of course, Airborne is still very much operating these days, and I guess they're getting the crowds back. I don't know if families go like they used to. It used to be a Sunday outing for the whole cotton picking family. I know our family would pile in the car and go here or go to Catamount. You knew Ken Squire.
Yep.
Ken.
Matter of fact, I worked with him a while over there, and one of the first races that he announced was out in Michigan, and he tried to talk me into going out there with him and
To do the color?
to do some of the. At that time, they were putting people on each one of the turns,
Oh yeah, sure.
and to do some to work.
Commentary, yeah.
And
Didn't do it? He's
Well,
made his mark, though, hasn't he? Ken
yeah.
Squire's made his mark with ABC and done a lot of big races, still working real hard these days after all those years. I don't know if he still has a piece of Catamount. He owned it, didn't he? Exclusively for a while?
yeah, or I don't know how that they owned
Yeah.
it, but he was part of it, part ownership. And same thing with Thunder Road.
Yeah.
But no, Ken did a great job and what's amazing, the first time we went to Daytona, we were down there, and Ken had a show at one of the hotels or motels. So I was talking with Teresa. I said, "Gee, let's go up and see the thing." So we went up, and we were going to have dinner there and so on. And we went in. Joey Chitwood, who I knew quite well.
Oh my goodness.
So
The famous hell driver.
I ran into him first, and we went in, and he had been working with Ken Squires on some deal. So we went over and we talked to Ken, and they were going to see us one place, and he had us seated at a table with Augie Bush, Waltrip, and I don't know, we were interviewing 3-4 drivers there. And Teresa, this is it. This is the epitome of the whole thing.
It. We made it.
But,
Oh my, what wonderful memories,
yeah,
huh?
it was great.
Absolutely wonderful memories. I want to pause just a moment, and then we're going to get into this photo album over here for the rest of our show and have some fun remembering the old days here in the North Country. Well, we're going to start right at the beginning of the scrapbook. You probably have more than one scrapbook, don't you?
No, it's the only one.
Do you really? You didn't save thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures. By the way, we figured out who the photographer was.
It's Bob Mackey.
Bob Mackey and Jerry, and I apologize for not remembering that name, but as you get older, every once in a while those names escape you. But he took an awful lot of photographs at Airborne over the years, didn't he?
Oh, he had hundreds and hundreds.
Just hundreds and hundreds, and it was important for publicity just as it is now to market the track and market the drivers and create all these friendly rivalries. Is this one of the early cars, the 66 with the trophies that you got there? Is that one of the, that's a coupe right there. One on
The
top.
coupes were the early ones.
Yeah.
The coupes are the early ones.
So that's one of the early ones. That was a Sportsman.
Yes.
Great old black and white photographs, but you got a couple color photographs of the races on that right-hand side. Probably not. Well, they're probably two different races, one in color and one in black and white. And you were naming some of the drivers that you could see. Do you remember some of those guys?
Oh, yes. Ernie Gahan, Bugsy Stevens, Bill Wimble.
A lot of people don't know that Wimble raced here, but he did for a while. I can't remember.
Not so much on a regular Saturday night,
Yeah.
but on the special races, very often he would appear. He was always a point chaser. That was
yes.
something that we never did. I can't say we were more going for the money, but we're never really concerned about whether we got points or whatever we had.
A lot of those numbers are familiar with people who watched races down through the years. Number 37,
Pete Corey.
and oh my goodness, just so many great memories. These are some little close-ups later on of 15 and 66, and I can't tell what that
3.
first number is 3. Who was 3?
Bugsy
Oh,
Stevens.
Bugsy was 3. That's exactly right.
Those are pictures that Bob Mackey would have taken.
Probably you're right. I remember seeing many, many, and that, you know, I see a date down in the corner of this second one. That's 7/4/61. So the 4th of July
Yeah.
races at Airborne. What's the longest race you ever drove? 200 laps?
Yes, but that was at Trenton.
2 100s or 200 lap race?
200 lap race.
That's tough.
200 lap race, and we also ran a 200 lap race at Malta.
Did you really? I didn't know they ran 200 lap
Yeah,
races.
we ran a
at
200
Malta.
lap race at Malta.
Wow. People don't have any clue, do they, about how tiring that is to wrestle with that steering wheel for 200 laps.
You have no idea how tired your leg gets.
Oh, everything.
Especially your left leg from just pushing, jumping up and stepping on the brake, stepping on the brake,
yeah.
stepping on the brake.
Just incredible.
Yeah.
And you didn't have all the modern conveniences that drivers have today with radio. You flew by the seat of your pants just like the old biplane pilots did, didn't you? Huh?
Yes.
No cruise control?
No cruise control.
No cruise control. No power steering either.
No power steering, which is why I said wrestling with that steering wheel was such a big factor
No power
back in those days. A whole different ball game, but wasn't it a wonderful time to be involved in racing?
Yes.
If you
it
watched
was
a
great.
lot of things evolve. When you first drove, what year would that be, you think?
55.
55, and you drove right straight up through almost 1970, late 60s,
No, I drove into the...
into the 70s?
Yeah, I just started into the 70s, but we had pretty well slowed down at that time, and we were running once or twice a week at the most. Most of the time, just once a week. And then later on, I stopped for 3-4 years. I was very busy with a lot of other things going on. Vic had another driver that drove periodically for him for a while. Then he stopped having a car, and in '75 he was talking with me. He said he wanted to build a late model. They were running late model on asphalt out here at the time at Airborne, and he wanted to build a late model. He said, "Would you drive it?" I said, "Gee, yeah." He says, "I'll build it." He says, "Let's go out." And he said, "Well, show them what we can do." So in '76 we went out, and we didn't get out there until the July 4th race, which was like on a Saturday. And he brought the car out, and before I got down there, they unloading it and so forth, the transmission went. And he was going to take it back and bring it back out. And I said, forget, why don't you just go ahead and we'll get ready to go next week, instead of trying to hurry up and get this going. We hadn't had it on the track at all. So the following week we came out with a car, and we won 6 features in a row with it.
Isn't that amazing?
The last feature we didn't actually win. We finished 3rd, but the 2 guys that were ahead of us protested each other, and one of them was Charlie, protested each other, and they tore the 2 cars down. They were both illegal. We ended up 3rd.
You think I don't remember those days?
But
Everybody tried to tweak whatever they could get, whatever you could do, and sometimes you made it and sometimes you didn't make it, and that was kind of ignominious thing to have happen when you have your car torn down after the race.
we had one year they tore it down 4 times.
Of course, I told you, everybody hates a winner. They couldn't believe that you would be legal.
They tore it down here, and just whatever you want to see, you can see.
Yeah, whatever you want. Yeah.
What's that little, that a luxury he's driving, or what is that?
Where? This
Down
one?
below, yeah.
What is that?
What's a sprint car?
Oh, that's right. I used to forget the midgets and the sprints.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
I drove that car at Airborne. It had to be in, I don't know, maybe 19, I don't know, it must be 1960 or 1961.
Can't remember. It says 132 something on it. MED. Maybe it's down at the end of the bottom of the picture. But where did that car come from?
Mass, Springfield, Mass. I think
Oh, it
was
did?
from. Yeah.
Don't want to roll that, huh?
Oh my goodness, no! You've
Yeah.
got a little roll bar, but your head's above the roll bar,
Yeah,
so that
it's,
probably wasn't a very good idea to roll that thing.
I'm not sure that Teresa was always awful happy about that either.
Really? I did see who's this guy?
That's got to be 1960. When did he have the
1964.
64?
I know who it is. I know what it's all about because I was one of those brothers of the brush. We're talking about the Plattsburgh sesquicentennial celebration where we had a little friendly competition among people to see who could grow the nicest beard. I think yours was way better than mine. And I tried to get a few years after
They
that.
compared me to Fidel Castro, except that but they had to wear a hat.
You
If
should
I had
have
a
had the hat
on
and the
it.
fatigues. That made it. But oh my goodness, isn't that great? That's wonderful. 1964. It says Mr. Bruno. I don't know. He must have commanded a lot of respect.
Well, that had to be Bob Mackey.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. What's this? What's this car here?
This is the car that I was talking about, a Valley Swears from Glens Falls that I drove.
Oh. And then the bottom
Off and
picture is of that terrible wreck. What was that? That's really beat up. What's this one?
That's a wreck that we got into at Syracuse. The car caught fire and burned up.
You got out of it?
I was out.
No, I know you were in a lot of fender benders and rail crunchers and scare. You rolled over a few times. Did you ever roll over?
Oh yes.
Yeah, lots of times.
Matter of fact, I came right out of the park there one day. We had raced at I think it was at Fonda. We had raced at Fonda the night before, and on a Sunday afternoon, we came to Airborne, and we were having a problem with the carburetor wouldn't shut down, and Vic took it and come out. We got home from Fonda, and they took the thing all apart and brought it out the next day, and it's Jesus fine, working fine. And we went out to warm the car up, and I made 1 or 2 laps there really slow, just like we warmed up. And I came down the front straightaway. Teresa was just walking in, and I never shut off on me. I couldn't get it shut off.
No kidding.
And I hit the sand berm, but I hit it going on, and it catapulted the air and went right out the outside the
That
fence.
doesn't exist anymore, does it? That sand berm, the sand
Jeez,
berm.
I don't know. I haven't been there.
I haven't been out there in many years, but that
But
I remember.
I hit that sand berm.
I remember
it
that.
just catapulted and it went right out through the fence.
I remember that. I was there.
It landed on the wheels, and Teresa,
You say to yourself,
I couldn't
"Oh."
believe it. I was unbelievable because the seat we had was an aircraft seat, and I had that heavy canvas on it, and the chest strap that I wore and so forth. My back, it was just like you'd taken sandpaper and run it up and down my
Really?
back. Yeah, from I suppose
Wow.
him going up and down and being so tight in the seat.
You know, that's a part of racing. Obviously, that always looms the possibility of getting in a bad wreck. Fires are the scariest, right?
Yeah, that one I got out of the car before the fire actually started. This was at Syracuse at the mile racetrack, and the problem was I didn't have any fire equipment there, and we had like mag wheels, and I don't know if you've ever seen magnesium.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
it's just like
Oh,
fireworks
yes.
when you
Oh,
put water
yes.
on it. It just
Yes.
sparkles go all over the
Yeah.
place. And the seat that we had was an aircraft seat, aluminum seat. And you ended up with a puddle of metal that big. That's how hot the fire was.
Wow.
And
Any injuries over
No.
the years? Never.
any injuries? Oh yeah.
Well, tell me about injuries. What did I miss?
Uh,
We're not there yet?
no.
You know, we were talking about injuries, but let's talk about your kids. Let's talk about your family a little bit here.
Well, certainly. I'm very proud of them.
Tell me about them.
Had probably four of the most outstanding wrestlers in the North Country, and I know in the state a couple of them. Craig won the states. Kevin, his brother, placed 3 times. Keith also did very well. They all went to school in scholarships. We were very proud of it. Craig ended up as an All-American. So did Keith. We're very proud of it.
Wonderful family. You guys have been married for how many years now?
It'll be 50 years in June.
I gotta love it. What's the date? June what?
June 12th.
Oh, 3 days before my birthday. Isn't
June
that?
12th. Oh, June 19th. I'm sorry, June 19th. My birthday is June 12th.
No kidding.
Yeah.
3 days before mine. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, so your kids were kind of brought up on it
Yeah.
at the racetrack. These are what? Did you ever count your trophies?
No, some of them I gave away to when they were having the bicycle motor cross things at the.
Who's the other guy in that picture?
Which one?
The last one.
Previous picture?
Vic Wolf. That's the guy who
Oh,
owned the car.
that's Vic. That's what we talked about. Yeah.
Vic just celebrated his 82nd birthday in
Really?
April. Yeah.
Isn't that
Still
great?
going.
I haven't seen Vic in many, many, many years. Okay, who we got here? These.
That's Fonda.
That's at Fonda?
Yeah. We won the feature, and
Some of these
yeah,
don't.
what's
don't-
remarkable about some of this, we won places that guys never go or have never placed at even. We finished third in the points at Fonda 2 years in a row, the 2 years that we ran down here, and which is really quite remarkable, because we would race there once or twice a year before that, and then decided we were going to race there a couple of years instead of at Airborne. But we're the only one from the North Country that I know of ever won a feature at Fonda.
That's pretty cool.
This is Ali Swear's car. This car, if you look at the door, it says I think it says Bud Smith. We ran over it,
Oh yeah, I never wouldn't have noticed that if you.
which is unusual. We ran over at Duanesburg at Victoria Speedway, and we won the feature with a car. But the NASCAR did not want you to run nothing except sanctioned tracks that they sanction. So they took the same cars that went over there and they ran under different names,
Oh yeah.
and everybody knew who you were. And when they announced you, they announced the name that was on there, what your name was. It didn't make any difference whether they did or not. Everybody knew who you were, and they were in the stand. So, but
That's crazy. They're crazy things. But that's just a little known fact. All right, here's some. This is a good one. That's you and who I don't know who 111 and 83 were.
111 was Shoemaker,
Oh yes.
and 83 was Pepper Eastman, and he got killed at Fonda one of the years that we were running there. We had 2 guys that got killed in Fonda the year of it. 1 year, in 1 year.
Is that the backstretch at Airborne? You think?
Yes, probably.
Nice rural area there with trees on both sides, and there were a few cars in the trees once in a while in the backstretch, and around turn 3.
I put MB2 out there one time.
Did you really? It was kind of lonely out there,
Yeah,
wasn't
it
it? Huh? You know Yes.
That raised the front, the front grill there, and the 51 down below.
Oh,
Is that-
here.
Yeah, I noticed that. Is that unusual, that style?
No, that was it was nothing but a screening that they had on there, and usually they just attach 2-3 chains, sort of knock the dirt off, and you get more air into the radiator, and wouldn't get so many stones in it. It was pretty heavy metal screening. No, you ran that to keep in dirt. You ran that to keep the
There were a lot of
stones
tricks.
and the dirt out of the as much as you could out of the
That would make an awful mess.
Yeah.
We started to talk a couple of minutes ago, I think when we shut the camera off, about injuries. Tell me about any injuries that you might have had in the process of racing.
The worst one I had was I ran into a car one night, and I should never have been even racing. We were down to race, and this is at Airborne, and I had a type of flu. I was really sick. I ran the heat, and I came in. I just laid down in the truck, and I told Vic, I said, "Gee, I'm not sure I can run the feature." And I said, "What?" Well, he says, "Just pack it in." He said, "We'll load it up." I said, "Well, what we'll do, we'll run a few laps. If I can get in first right away, I said, I'll be all set." And so we started the race, and I got up, and I was beside Dick Nephew was in first place, and I got on the outside of him. And when going into the first turn, that been Loyal Laqueer had spun out, and he had an old Chrysler, and he was sitting on the track facing me. And when I went into the turn, of course, I had an obstructed view because Dick being inside of me, and I ran in, and I never touched the brake or anything. All of a sudden, bang, I ran into Loyal Laqueer. And we stopped there, and somebody was behind me and ran into the back of me too. But it really did a pretty good job on me. They had bent the frame in the car, and the seat belts and everything worked perfectly, but the car frame came up. When it did, where the steering wheel came up, it came up towards my face, and it caught me on the edge of the...
Is that the scar that's around your eye right now? It's very, very visible.
I had
wow.
18 stitches.
18?
Right across
Talk
there.
about battle scars. I can see that ridge still in there. Constant memory every time you...
was swollen up like that.
Really?
But next week we raced too.
Come on.
Yeah, we did.
Pads it together and do it. And this is the 000 that we mentioned before.
Yeah.
That looks like it's got a few battle scars right there.
Oh, it came like that. He painted that with a piece of rag and a paint. Just
Yo, come on.
No, I'm serious.
I love it.
There wasn't a lot of artistic endeavor that went into some of these things. But the car ran great.
That's what counts.
This is Nels Chapel. He used to live up next to the town dump. Nels is a great guy.
Here's the MB2.
Yeah. It's the one we have with Charlie McGee.
And it's, it was so important to get sponsors. Were you the one that had to go out scrounging for sponsors, or did you?
No, Vic sponsored his own car.
He did, huh? Great shots. Bruno dumps nation's best. 14th of July, 1969. Outdrove some of the best drivers in the business. Came down to the feature Saturday night. One of the wildest evenings the North Country has ever seen. There's no byline here, so I have no idea who wrote it, but there's a little bit of the flavor in here.
Probably Bob Mackey. He used to do a lot of the press.
He did, too. Yeah. Bugsy Stevens, Bobby Santos, Pete Corey, Fred DeSaro, Dick Nephew, Guy Chartrand, Narducci. Wow. Huh?
We had some great people. McTavish, Don McTavish.
Oh, yeah, right.
Raced up here. Hamilton.
Oh, yeah, I forgot Hamilton. Yeah, sure.
It raced up here as well, who won Grand National race.
Yeah. And other names are mentioned here, local favorites, Danny Bridges and so many people, Ron Miller. Here's one from 1969, start of the modified feature. That's nice to save the clippings. Did you put this together? Or did Teresa have
I just threw it together.
Yeah, you did a beautiful job on throwing it together. Bob Bruno. Winners. Who's this guy, George? I don't remember that name. Oisel?
I don't know.
I don't either. It doesn't ring a bell, and I'm sure many of our viewers will say, Gordy, you remember? But I really don't. Don't remember that name at all.
I just picked up, I threw something else in here when we were talking about these guys. This was in a NASCAR Winston Cup scene. These are the top 10 all-time modified drivers. Richie Evans,
who
raced
goodness.
here. Jerry Cook,
Oh,
we
my
ran
goodness,
against at,
of course.
especially on the asphalt tracks. Ray Hendricks, we raced against
Yep.
at Trenton. Bugsy Stevens, who raced here quite frequently, and Fred DeCero, who you just mentioned. I said, gee, this is interesting. I've raced against some of the
best there ever were.
There ever were.
Well,
And they raced here at Airborne.
It's
I didn't have to go find them. They came to find
yeah,
me.
but isn't it nice? That's what makes the memories worthwhile, because you did make your mark. I mean, you can't deny it. You won an awful lot of races. I don't know how many features you won over the years. Somebody probably knows that.
Well, one of the things that we would do, and this was always by choice. I was always asked if I wanted to do it or not, but was asked if we wanted to do it on some of the bigger races when we were running the limited sportsman here. These guys would come in, like you were just looking at the picture with Bugsy Stevens and those guys would all come in with sportsman engines. That was a sportsman class at that time. And if we ran a different size engine, then the points didn't count wherever we finished. So we would always lose probably at least 3 races. There were 100 laps or 75 laps where we wouldn't get any points. And the reason we wouldn't is because we were running a different size engine.
So much going on
That
behind the
car
scenes.
that you were looking at that burned up in Syracuse,
Yeah.
we went down there, we qualified 6th in that car, and we had an engine that we knew would run with any of those cars. There was a modified race, but we knew we could run with any of those cars, and we started with slick tires, which was unusual on dirt. But Syracuse is a very hard track and so forth. And we ran from 6th to 3rd, zip, 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 and got by a couple of guys. And what really happened with the thing, we ended up losing a drive shaft, and the guy ended up banging into the back of it. And when he did, this was before he got into fuel cells, and it punctured the gas tank. And I don't know what it dripped on with his car, but the stream of fire just went up through and
Oh boy,
right up to the gas tank, and
so dangerous.
yeah.
Exploded.
And while Rennie Charlin was very badly burned down in Malta one night
Oh yes.
with fire. Matter of fact, they were lucky to get him out of the car.
This is very different. When Bob said fuel cells, they're what are they made out of? Polypropylene, some kind of plastic anyway.
Well, and they're soft enough that they
give.
They give.
Instead of puncturing like
And
the old
you're
metal
also
tanks.
using a much heavier metal on the exterior rather than just the regular gas tank.
Yeah, a whole different ball game. So many just classic, wonderful memories. Bruno Kopp's thrilling Fonda race. Oh yeah, Eastman fatally injured at Fonda. Wimble notches Fonda victory. Shoemaker Kopp's stocks honors at Fonda. Taylor victor at Fonda. Mazzaro battles way to victory at Fonda stocks. STOX, very clever headlines. STOX.
These are guys that raced for years and years.
Oh
and,
my goodness.
Very outstanding.
Just wonderful memories. Uh-oh, Bruno, not sure of stock car racing this season.
He wasn't.
The stock car driving school teacher, I'll never forget. Here he is, the racing school teacher. That's the way they build you everywhere.
Well, I was Ken Squires. Started that.
Ken started that?
Yeah.
I wondered who started that, because that was the
Ken
two were
Squires.
synonymous, the racing school teacher.
Ken Squires.
As if there were never anybody who ever taught school that raced stock cars, I guess.
Geez, at that time, I don't.
They probably weren't
I
at
don't
that
know
time when
any
you start
others
to
that
think
ever-
about it. Interesting distinction. Okay, here we go. Bruno may hang up gear. At least they didn't say hang up jock. Oh, gosh. But now we don't know what year that was. Probably call it quits after
Mike
this
Brainerd
year.
wrote it.
Yeah, Mike Brannon. Think about it.
Probably 64. Or, I think it's when we started going, when we went to Fonda the next year.
And you raced several years after that, so who were you
Yeah.
kidding?
Well, we raced 2 years at Fonda.
Yeah, after 8 years of driving, 5 years of teaching, Bruno says he's pretty well made up my mind to make this the last year of racing. Married with 4 sons, 9, 5, and identical twins, age 3. They're my biggest fans. I love it. I love it. Boy, you're a pretty tough-looking hombre in that picture right there. Huh? Canceled the 100-lapper. Best advice, Weather Bureau. That was probably Bird Burnett predicting the weather back in those days.
No, I think that was at the, I think that was a Trenton race.
Oh, that was?
Yeah.
Okay. It says Airborne Speedway, after seeking the best advice, canceled the 100-lapper
Oh, okay.
Saturday night.
No,
The
sorry.
weather cleared, the sun shone for the next 2 hours. Cancellation came at a
Well,
bad time.
Well, that's the type of race I was just talking about, where that we would run a different engine, and we'd end up with no points.
See that?
So the first person that placed behind us, 100 lapper, you get like 100 points. You would that person, even though he didn't finish first, would be the first one
Sure.
with the
And unbelievable.
engine side. That's the one I was just talking about.
That's the one. Yep. And this is the one that we mentioned before for people who didn't believe it. This is true. $100 bonus to any winner over Bruno. Case of inclement weather, races held on Sunday. 1964, when you and I had those beards, Louis Armstrong came to town, and as our viewers know and you remember, marched in our parade, and I've got the 8mm tapes to prove that. And then somebody towed a semi, a trailer out there, and made it into a stage, cut the side out of it, put some steps on it, made it into a stage, and Louis was going to perform at Airborne. We all went out there. There was a huge crowd of people, and we were on the air broadcasting, and all of a sudden the sky opened up. Thunder and lightning and torrential rains. I thought the trailer was going to sink in the mud. So I got the bright idea to call the station and have them try to get a hold of somebody at Memorial Hall and see if we could get to Jim. And we did, and they did. Try to do that in a moment's notice today. So I went on the air, led the parade, said, everybody follow me. And I broadcast on the microphone all the way down there. We had a parade of hundreds of cars, went down to Memorial Hall. Louis Armstrong performed as he had never performed before. The record company said, and hey kid, we don't want this on the radio, and we don't want you to record this, or you're going to go to jail for a long, long time. So I told him back at the station, record every bit of this. And I hit the little Marty transmitter under the stage, and Louis Armstrong sang and played his heart out. He was 64 in 1964. At least they thought his birthday was on the 4th of July. We learned later that it wasn't. But that was the only time he ever had a million-selling gold record. He had a lot of big hits, but never that big, and it was Hello Dolly. And that night, he did 5 encores. 5 encores. He was just a beautiful guy. And those tapes are all at the radio station somewhere now. But talk about golden memories from 64. Okay, what in the heck is this? What is that? That's not your helmet. What is that?
That's Howard Giro. You used to have the, did he have a bar room up in Ellingburg? I'm not sure. Matter of fact, he drove T800 at one time for Rao Brothers.
Oh, is that a helmet that he's got on? That's the funniest looking thing I ever saw. Didn't protect his forehead very well.
Yeah, I think it is.
Isn't it?
No, it's a Neverlast. It's for boxing. That's not a picture for the wrestling. That's from something else. It's from a boxing.
Well, this is your bonus. This is 1963, where bonus safe Bruno wins again, Trombley second. Good friendly rivalries
Oh, I tried to make a deal with Charlie. We can make it. You win. You get $300. You get the bonus. That's $400. I'm going to play second, and I get $225, and we'll put the money all together and we'll divide it. And I said, I'll make more money than I would have made before, and you'll make more money than you would have made before.
You know, you had many friendships as well as friendly rivalries, but did you really ever hate any of these guys?
I never really had a serious problem with any of the drivers. You know,
boy, there's talk of go ahead, finish your point.
There are times that you're always going to get involved.
Frustrated.
Yeah. Well, with somebody, geez, I was leading a 75 lap race, and I was lapping a guy, and I won't tell you the name because he's still around here, but he was probably 3-4 laps behind me, and I went on. I should have just waited for him to go through the first and second turn. I decided I'd go by him coming off the second turn. And when I did, he came out to me, took me off into the stumps there and so forth. And I said, geez, I was 2 laps before the end.
Oh, God, what a feeling. Oh, my goodness.
I should have known better. You know, and that was one of the things that Vic always contributed to me, that, geez, you're smarter than they are, I guess, because I know that guy is going to be trouble. Follow him. I had a nice lead, and so just take your time and get there.
Oh, boy. Those frustrations. Well, here's the 3 Musketeers right here. Bob Bruno, Dick Nephew, and Charlie Tremblay, the squirrel. Car 66 demolished in race.
That's the one. That's her name.
Nephew wins feature. That's the one we were just talking about. Interesting that we should come to that page. And then some nights were just plagued. Some nights, 15 cars would get wrecked. You know, it could be a good night, not a slick track, and you never know what was going to start it. But once it started, it was awful, wasn't it, some nights?
We went down to Stafford Springs when Firestone first came out with that big 15-inch tire.
Yeah.
And we went down and said, well, we might just well take the car down. It was the only place that had these tires that were available. So we went down to, we'll race down there, and buy the tires and come home. So we did. And we were racing at, this was on a Friday night, and we were racing at Airborne the next night. This was in the late mid-60s there. So came back to Airborne the next night and get these 4 brand new tires all on and so forth. And the first heat race I'm in, geez, I go out and I'm passing the guy that was in first place. I'm passing him. I'm on the outside of him coming off in number 4, and he hooks me in the right rear, or left rear. Geez, I hit the wall, I turn up over and go over the wall, come back down onto the track. When I get all done, I've ruined all 4 brand new tires. I haven't ran 10 laps.
Oh my goodness.
And at that time, I think they were like maybe $125 a piece.
Big money back in those days.
But these are the big
Oh yeah, the big ones. Oh, isn't that amazing?
Nice.
Bill Hickey, my goodness.
Bill ran hobby and was very lucky. He ran Rod Ritchie's car, and this is when he was driving bobsled, and this is when the AAU
That's why I mentioned it. Yeah.
You had to be a true amateur.
Yeah.
And they all had to take all kinds of loyalty oaths and so forth. They had never collected any money. He never signed for any money. So you always had to sign the sheet for the money.
Famous name in racing, though. Jack Liberty.
I'm always telling and Teresa hates it when I tell a poor mouth story. But when the twins were born, we were not very well off. Well, matter of fact, we were nowhere near as well off as we are today. I can tell you.
Join the club.
I was still in school. We didn't have any health insurance. We had Keith was 15 months, born 15 months earlier. And with the school, and I was working some part-time jobs, or some friends of mine that gave me some occasional work for $1.50 an hour type thing, and once in a while. But anyway, I was into racing, and I was driving Allie Square's car, And I left here on a Friday night, and this was after the first part of September. They were born on the 4th of September. We couldn't get them out of the hospital. They were born a little premature, so they're staying in a hospital. And at that time, it was only $15 a day. But
Think about that, folks.
So you're talking $30 a day, and I'm getting $160 a month to go to school. That's what we were living on, and so forth. And I told Teresa, she was very upset about it. She'd go down and every morning and feed them and pet them and rock them and so forth, and come home and cry. And we're never going to be able to get them out of there and so on. And I left on Friday night, and I was driving Allie Swear's car down at Doinsburg. I said, Teresa, when I come back, I said, we're going to race Friday night and Saturday. And we was bad off. We had an old car, and I had to borrow my father's car to make sure I got good transportation to go down there and back.
Oh.
Went down. Teresa, when I come back, I'll have enough money to get them out. I came home on Saturday night, and I threw the money on the bed, and I said, here it is. You got $300.
Oh, boy. Big time, huh?
Oh, jeez.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. I said, geez,
Those are moments.
We've made it. Geez, I never seen anybody so joyful in my. Oh, geez, we jumped up and we talked them.
You'll never forget those
night.
moments. Never forget that. Oh boy! 5-point landing on the guardrails. Gaston, holy mackerel! Look at this. Oh gosh. So you never broke any bones? You got cut up pretty bad that one night.
It's the only thing that ever happened.
Oh God! These this is wonderful for me, as that maybe our viewers can tell, because these are all wonderful memories that me and my kids and my family, and I always tell the story about one time, I don't know what vehicle we had, but we packed as many of our kids as we could in the car and headed for Catamount. And there was a huge crowd, as they had some mammoth crowds there. Races got over, and it took so long to get out of there. So I said, okay, I'm not going to get in this crowd. Had the car overheat when we're trying to get out of here. We're going to get in the car, we're going to take a little nap. Just for a couple seconds, I'm going to close my eyes, and when we wake up, it'll be nice and clear, and we'll get out of here with no trouble at all. So we all took a little nap and woke up. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's nobody around. We had no trouble getting out of Airborne. Of course, there was no more ferry that was running, right?
No, you had to go up around with the
So
bridge.
we had to drive the whole thing, and I said quite a few bad words all the way back home. NASCAR suspends top airborne drivers. Press Republic in 1964. What was the story behind that headline?
The payoff, the distribution of the purse. And everybody kept talking about it, and we finally got together.
Here we go.
We had a meeting, and because Charlie and I were doing so well at the track, we were kind of nominated as the spokes people for the group. So we got everybody together, and they agreed that they weren't going to race unless they made a change. So before we ever got to the track, they decided that they would suspend us all. We hadn't got there yet, but we were already suspended, and we did. We met with Bert. We met with Bert first, and then we met with Bert and Morris, and tried to explain to them, the benefit of everybody. And this was more or less for some of the guys at the tail end too. They were getting nothing. They were coming week after week, and they get $10 type thing. But so they did increase the purse, and we did race that night. All the cars.
Oh, you did?
Oh yeah, all the cars sat in a row along the edge of the road.
Oh, here it is. NASCAR suspension lifted. Bruno wins airborne race. All right. That's July 26th.
We accomplished what we set out to do, I think was probably the most important aspect of it. And it wasn't the benefit for the top, and this is one of the things that was so difficult selling to some of the people on the lower end of the pay scale, was it wasn't for the benefit of the top ones as much as it was the distribution down below. If you want to share in the top, then you've got to help us get this thing going.
Oh, there's our prairie right there. We mentioned our prairie. Art's got the flag.
I gave Art a ride one time on you know, this is crazy. You wouldn't even dare to think about doing it now. I gave him a ride on the cowl. This is the front bumper thing. He's sitting on there holding the flag up. He said, give me a ride around. He sat there, and all I can see is just the top of his head over the hood. And I went tearing around the track with Art sitting on that thing, holding the checker flag. Jeez, I think about that, you know, if he had bounced off in there.
You were smarter than the other drivers?
Yeah, that's what Vic told you.
But he was awful. He was terrible. This is a guy that started the races down on the track. For years, he was down on the track.
Oh, I know very well.
He'd wave the flag and run.
Oh, well, I know. I've been there many times. I was close a few times, too. How many pileups were there before the flag got down? There was 15 cars in a wreck sometimes.
But when I was talking about Pepper Eastman there and Bud Smith, the other guy that was killed at Fonda that year, Pepper Eastman, they never could figure out, and we're never quite sure what caused his death, other than it had to be a blow to the head. And the reason, the car tipped over, and if you've ever been to Fonda, on the third turn, there used to be a cemetery there. Well, they moved that now, finally. I don't think they took the bodies, but they did move the stones and so forth. They were pretty well cleared out over the years anyway, but this is going to the third turn. He ended up rolling the car over. And the car ended up on the wheels and was sitting there, and they thought he was unconscious, but he only survived a day or so. And this is one of the first year that they required the fire extinguishers in the car, and they had to be within reach of the driver. And they were like you have a regular fire extinguisher in a little container, but it's got a strap around it and so on.
Sure.
And that was loose in the car. That's the only thing I think it must have happened is
freak thing.
It came off and they hit him in the head. His helmet, he had a full helmet on, so that just hit him, and when he was turning over, and it did. And Bud Smith ended up rolling over in the front straightaway, and at that time they had railroad ties down the front straightaway, and geez, he rolled over on those, and that was before he had nettings and so forth in the window, and he had that.
Gosh.
The first time we went to Trenton, I got to tell a story too when I say that. I was talking about netting and windshields and so forth. On dirt, we always just used a little flip shield of the glass.
Sure.
And Vic had made two of them, so I just could reach over and hit the string, and it would pull one up. Then you could pull another one up, and you still had good visibility. So we went down to Trenton. We raced at Fonda there one night, and we went down to the race was Sunday at Trenton, and they were checking them in the morning. You had to be there, I don't know, like 6 o'clock or something. So anyway, we went from Fonda down to Trenton. Get down there, and I got out on the track and went around the track, and I used to wear these little plastic goggles. They were quite small. Geez, I go up the backstretch, and I haven't got any windshield in. It would suck the glasses right off. I had to slow down. Geez, we got to do something about it. I can't keep my goggles on. Well, he says, let me see. One of the other guys had these wide band jobs and so forth. So I went out and I tried those. It would do the same thing. It was the air was coming in, and you had nothing to keep it out. So finally, one of the matter of fact, it was one of Ray Hendricks' group. It was up from down south. They had some extra windshields. He said, geez, put this in the car. They got a punch, and they punched holes, and they had one of those rivet things there. Made a couple of braces, put the windshield in. Geez, it works great.
Isn't that amazing? That's a wonderful story. Oh, we've been looking at your car turned up, and about Charlie quitting Airborne, and probably may return to Airborne tonight. Oh, God. Bax Racing for Young Men. Melvin County Supervisor, elementary school teacher, champion stock car driver, told Rouse's Point Kiwanians Tuesday night he recommends stock car racing for all young men. There.
You know who invited me to that meeting?
No.
John Zerlo.
John did?
Yep.
I'll kid him about that this afternoon.
John Zerlo invited me.
Isn't that? Oh gosh, what just wonderful memories. You know, as we're wrapping up our day today, I want you to, I'm just going through here, 13,000 the 10 program, where the heck was that? 13,000? Towards airborne, how could that be? How could that be? 13,000 people at airborne? Estimated 13,000? They would have had to be in the fields of that place. Come on.
No, they were.
I can't ever remember 13,000 people at airborne. That amazes me.
That you can't believe the people that were there. I don't think there were 13,000, but the grandstand.
Jack Terrell was the honorary official. You know how long ago that was. Whoa. You know, there were thousands. I'm sure there were thousands. I could remember 3,000 or 4,000, but I didn't remember 13,000.
I think the grandstand, before they put the section down in the first turn, I think the main grandstand held, at one time held like 30, it was 3,600 would hold. And then they put that on, that was another 900 or.
Then they used to have the powder puff races every now and again, and the ladies, I bet you Teresa never got behind the wheel.
Yep, she did.
Come on.
Yeah, she did.
You want to tell me about it?
Tried it one time.
Did you really get behind the wheel at airborne one time?
We don't want to talk
No,
about
we don't want to talk about that.
it. I'm very modest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Buck Holliday. We didn't mention Buck Holliday. Wow-wee.
Buck was still running here when I started. I was in dirt.
How
That's
well I
an old-
remember. Wow.
You know what's amazing? This is a guy that had so much control over this track here and won so frequently. But he was one of the first ones that came out with an overhead engine.
Really?
Overhead valve engine, yes.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't remember that.
And that was really superior to everything else that was running here at the time. And Buck never won a feature. Like he ran at Fonda for years when we were down there. Geez, I don't know if he ever won a heat.
Isn't it amazing?
And he ended up with a lot of junk cars that he was driving.
And what a
too.
tragedy.
Yeah.
Great driver in his day. And here's Ernie Reed. I don't know if we mentioned him here today.
Ernie drove the 88 to Studebaker for years.
Don Hayes, the late Don
Don-
Hayes,
Don,
late Don
yes.
Hayes. Oh my goodness. Wheels and chassis splattered over the stateway, Daytona Beach, Florida. Don McTavish.
Yeah.
Talk about an awful mess, huh? Wow.
That isn't there anymore. That gate, they eliminated that gate after the.
Really? It's gone?
Yep.
Oh boy. There's McTavish, yeah, after that happened. Wow. Terrible, terrible blow, huh?
Yep.
Hey, you mean we got color shots at the end? All right. That's terrific. Yeah, those are the shots. That's the same picture as here, huh? There's Trenton. Got the ticket.
I'm very proud of this. Oh, yeah. You gotta get me down there.
Take your time. You can do it upside down.
Race, the official entry list.
Entries for the race. Where was this? Trenton, right?
Trenton.
And
And this is our starting position.
car number 66, starting number 6.
That's right.
Come on.
We should have won that race. There was
Oh, Robert.
at 125 laps. You know, all the races I ran with Vic Ol's cars, we lost 2 engines. That's the only time it ever happened. We lost just 2 engines in all the years I drove for him.
Isn't that's pretty good? That's a pretty good testimony, really,
One
when
of
you
them-
consider it.
Yeah, one of them, we raced at Cernak Lake one night, on a Friday night, and he decided that he wanted to check the bearings in the engine the next day, because it hadn't been apart for a while. So he dropped the base and so forth and checked the bearings, or checked a set of them, and they were fine, put it back together. And I went out to the track that night and went to warm the car up. The first lap that I went any speed at all, the engine came apart. And the only thing that he was sure that what happened when they were putting the caps back on, that one of the cap bolts, they have a little side that's flat, that got turned. And just
What
enough,
happened?
and even though that he was sure that it was tight and so on, it wasn't, and the engine came apart. So that was we didn't have the car at race, but we lost that engine. And the one at Trenton that day, at 125 laps, we were in third place.
Oh my gosh.
And the two
Come on.
And the two cars that were ahead of us, and we had already made a pit stop. We had made a pit stop, and which meant that we didn't have to stop again. And all of a sudden, some rings and so forth went in the engine, and it started really smoking bad. And before it came apart, I pulled it in, but the engine was gone.
Talk about disappointment.
We were in third place.
Oh my
and
goodness.
the car that won was Rennie Charlin.
Oh yes.
He won the race. He was 2 laps behind us at that time, and he wasn't going to pass us. He might have passed us in 1 lap, but it'd been lucky if he'd done that. But because we were really running great.
Oh boy.
Jeez, I said.
Golden memories.
Yeah,
Golden memories.
That's at one race that.
Some time ago, and I had forgotten it until Calvin just brought it up. Keith brought me a copy of some racing tape. Some of the old footage must be old 8mm, 16mm film of some of your races. I have no idea what's on the tape. You don't either.
No, I don't know.
But we're going to show a little bit of it at the end of our program before we leave, and our time is running out. I want to just talk a little bit about you've worn many hats over the years, and among those hats is your political life. You've been a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat since the very beginning, right? What was your first elected office?
Supervisor.
Supervisor.
I thought you were going to start, you might just well start at the top. and this was, Gordy, I laugh about this, but when I started, that wasn't the trend. You started, they would let you run as an assessor or something, then make you a councilman, and then when you get old enough and mature enough and so forth. But I was the youngest supervisor they ever had in the town of Scholar Falls. We had about 3-to-1 majority Republicans in the town when I was elected. I come from a family of some Republicans. As a matter of fact, my mother was a Republican committee person. At the time that I registered to vote, they used to always have elderly ladies that were on the polls and so forth. I was a young guy, I went into the polls there, and instead of going over and going behind the curtain and putting a block on Democrat, I just put a block on Democrat. And the person I was most influenced by was a woman by the name of Minnie Stoughton, who lived on Salmon River Road and was a teacher of history at Peru. And I was always under the impression that she must be a big Democrat. She wasn't. She was a very staunch Republican, but she thought very highly of Franklin D. Roosevelt, and that's what kind of persuaded me to go that direction. Well, anyway, I went to the polls, I registered, and I came home, and I had gone somewhere else in between. I got home, and my mother asked me. She said, "Did you register?" And I said, "Yeah." I stopped, registered, and she said, "You didn't register Democrat, did you?" They had already told her.
They had already seen it.
Isn't
that
She
incredible?
said, "Oh my God, your grandfather would be very upset with you." I said, "Why?" Well, he was a very staunch Republican.
But you had a fun career in politics, ended up in the legislature, chairman of the legislature twice.
I was on the last board of supervisors that served in Clinton County. And I guess probably one of the greatest things that I ever accomplished as a legislator, a Clinton County legislator, or as a supervisor, was the establishment of Clinton Community College.
Yeah.
That is my resolution.
Isn't that wonderful?
That's my resolution.
What a wonderful feather in your cap, and look at it now.
I still keep the clipping and it was not an easy vote to obtain. We had 16 supervisors at the time, and it passed 9-6, but Now past 97, I guess. No, I think there was somebody. I think LeBear was not there anymore. I think he was missing. But we didn't have a great majority, and there was a great deal of opposition to it. But I believed very strongly. I believed very strongly in it, and you know, and it's strange when I came back onto the Board of Legislators. And the reason I got out, by the way, and I've told you offhand that my children were growing up, and I wanted to have some time with them, and I really did, and I enjoyed all those years. When I came back onto the legislature, it was my resolution that to obtain the phys ed and health building, and it was also my resolution to obtain the arts building. I felt very strongly about Clinton Community College and the growth that has been obtained, the number of people that have had an opportunity to
What an awesome
obtain an
resource
education
here in the North Country, and it's got a wonderful reputation with a new technical building, technology center, and training so many of our young people for jobs today. So that's a great thing. So you enjoyed your years in the political arena?
Oh, very much so. Had a great time.
Yeah.
Don't regret it. And you know, people ask if I miss it. No, it was great when it was there, and you're very knowledgeable with all these things. And I was fortunate. I did have enough of a business background so that I could handle many aspects of government without going elsewhere. I was familiar with bonding and so on through some of the employment I had prior to going to school.
Well, it's been a wonderful time. We've just about run out of tape. I've enjoyed every minute of it. It took us a long time to get at your table, Bob Bruno, but we finally did it. We're going to show a little bit of that racing tape at the end of our program. I hope people enjoy it. It probably won't be the last show we'll do on racing at Airborne or stock car racing in general. It's been a wonderful sport around here for many years, has given you so much enjoyment and your fans and many friends. I want to thank you personally for the contribution you've made, not only in that arena, but in all the other arenas, including being an educator and a father and a family member and just a good, upstanding North Country citizen. Schuyler Falls will be proud.
Well, thank you very much, Corey.
Thank you,
I
Bob.
enjoyed doing it.
It's been a kick.
I enjoyed doing it.
It's
And
been
thank
a
you,
kick.
Calvin.
Who knows, maybe some other day there'll be a chapter 2. Have fun in Florida this winter.
Will do. Thank you very much.
And thanks, Teresa, for your contribution and that really best cup of coffee I've had all day.
Did he offer you a second one?
No,
I
it
couldn't get
didn't,
him stopped.
it didn't matter. We were too busy.
Not a good host. Not a good host at all.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks again, everybody. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.